Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic story part 2. The fanfic title is What If Naruto's Biggest Fan Was Reborn as Kurama to Protect Him part 2. If you like this fanfic, don't forget to subscribe my channel. Now let's start the fanfics. Number 59, number 41, number 23, eliminated. Slowly but surely, the voices of the proctors announcing participant eliminations became more frequent in the tense examination room. The exam papers seemed to be an invisible battlefield. However, the 9 rookie genin from Konoha appeared relatively calm, each using their own unique skills to try and obtain answers. Only Sakura stood out because she was genuinely working through the questions with her own ability. The top student in theory was truly exceptional. Currently, the only sound remaining in the exam room was the scratching of pencils on paper as candidates tried to answer. However, hidden beneath that concentrated silence, various impressive ninjutsu for gathering intelligence were in action. Neji's Byakugan, Sasuke's Sharingan, Kiba's Akamaru, Shino's insects moved silently collecting information, sound waves from the Otogakur genin were used for communication, and Tendon skillfully used threads and ninja tools to cooperate with Lee to obtain information. Ino, of course, used her Yamanaka clan's signature jutsu to possess someone else's mind, Sakura's. Swish. A kunai shot out accurately, narrowly grazing Naruto's face and embedding itself hard into the exam paper of the ninja sitting behind him. Naruto's heart momentarily pounded. Number 27. You've made 5 mistakes. You're out. A proctor's voice sounded cold and merciless. And this person's 2 teammates, leave the examination room now. Naruto panicked for a moment, imagining his team would fail because of him. However, he quickly calmed down when he heard Hana's gentle voice in his mind. Calm down, Naruto-kun. This is part of the test. Don't let this pressure control you. Remember what we discussed. As Naruto was about to try the strategy Hana had taught him to get answers, he noticed movement beside him. Hinata Hyuga, her face slightly flushed, carefully slid her answer sheet a little towards Naruto, as if by accident. Does this count as an intelligence gathering method too, Hana-nichan? Naruto asked inwardly, slightly surprised and confused by Hinata's action. Hana chuckled amusedly in his mind. Fufufu. You know, Naruto-kun, in the Kunoichi CL, at the academy, lessons in seduction and utilizing charm are part of the curriculum, you know. Perhaps your handsome face and charisma have unconsciously conquered Miss Hyuga's heart to the point she's willing to give you her answers. Who knows? Hana teased with an amused tone. Naruto's face immediately felt hot. Ha, Hana-nichan. Don't say weird things. He tried to ignore Hana's teasing and focus on the situation before him. Although embered, he also felt a little happy. Naruto quickly wrote, "Thanks, Hinata," on the corner of his desk, where only Hinata could see it from the side. Then he added, "Just leave your paper unobstructed, no need to show it too much so the proctors don't notice." He didn't want Hinata to get into trouble because of him. After making sure Hinata read it and nodded faintly, Naruto quickly erased the writing on the desk. Carefully and without being too conspicuous, he began to copy answers from Hinata's paper. His heart was still pounding, not just from fear of getting caught, but also because of Hinata's kindness. 45 minutes later, time sped minute by minute, dragging the tension throughout the examination room to its peak. Finally, Morino Ibiki's heavy voice broke the suffocating silence. Okay, the trash has almost been cleared out. Now, let's announce the 10th question. Ibiki's words were like thunderclaps exploding over the examination room, startling all the genin. First, I will explain it in detail, Ibiki continued without expression, his sharp eyes observing each candidate, as if piercing their souls. This 10th question has some special rules that will make you despair. Everyone's heart stirred, and they pricked up their ears, afraid of missing even a single detail of the proctor's explanation. First rule, Ibiki said, you must choose whether to answer this 10th question or not. Candidates who choose not to answer will immediately be deemed unqualified and receive 0 points. Of course, your 2 teammates will also be eliminated along with you. In that case, the question must be multiple choice. It's too chaotic if there's an elimination rule like that. Whispers and discussions immediately filled the examination room. Quiet, Ibiki barked. There's another, more important rule. If you choose to answer the 10th question, but your answer is wrong, then the person who answered the question will be disqualified from taking the Chunin exams, forever. The room instantly erupted. How can there be such a ridiculous rule? Kiba shouted, not accepting it. Besides, there are some candidates here who have taken this exam many times. That's not fair. Kiba's observation skills were indeed still very sharp. Haha, your luck is truly rotten. This year, I am the proctor, and I make the rules. Ibiki sneered, a cold smile etched on his scarred face. Besides, I'm also giving you an easy way out. Those who aren't confident in their answers, or are afraid of the consequences, can choose not to answer and try again next year. The choice is yours. The tense atmosphere in the examination room reached its climax, almost suffocating. Each genin weighed the incredibly heavy choice. Now, Ibiki's voice echoed again, for those who do not want to answer question number 10, please raise your hands. After your numbers are recorded, you and your team are welcome to leave this place. The atmosphere in the place was truly tense. Many people were pinning their hopes on this last question, but the risk was too great. One by one, hands began to rise hesitantly, followed by disappointed sighs and heavy footsteps leaving the room. Suddenly, Kankuro, the genin from Sunagakur, stood up and roughly pushed the door open, followed by a proctor who walked out with him. Naruto watched the proctor carefully. Strangely, the proctor seemed mindless and moved like a lifeless doll. You're very lucky, kid. All your efforts playing with puppets behind the scenes weren't in vain, it seems. Ibiki looked at Kankuro with a faint, unreadable smile. So that person was a puppet. Naruto suddenly realized. Kankuro was controlling it from outside to get answers. Clever. Naruto, who had gotten a detailed heads up on the format of this 10th question from Hana-ni-chan, appeared relatively calm. He observed his surroundings, seeing the tense and doubtful faces of the other genin. He then looked at Ibiki without a trace of fear. More and more participants raised their hands, choosing to give up rather than risk being disqualified forever. The room began to feel a bit emptier. Seeing the doubt on his friends' faces and those of other participants, Naruto suddenly stood up and slammed his hand hard on the table. Don't underestimate me. I won't run. I will answer the question. I will participate fully in this exam, and I will become Hokage someday. I'm not scared at all, Dadbeo. He shouted loudly, his voice breaking the tension. Because of Hana's repeated warnings not to say forbidden words like, even if I can only be a genin for the rest of my life, Naruto consciously didn't say that part. He remembered Hana once said, words have power, Naruto-kun. Never limit yourself with negative statements, even if it's to show courage. In Naruto's subconscious, Hana smiled proudly. Smart boy, that's my prince. If it weren't for these damn iron bars in the way, I would have made sure you got the warmest kiss and hug from me right now, Naruto-kun. Hana whispered in a coddling tone. The blonde boy's previously serious and determined face immediately flushed slightly upon hearing the praise and enticement from Hana-ni-chan. I'll ask one more time. Ibiki stared sharply at Naruto, then at all the remaining participants. This is a choice that will sacrifice your entire future as a ninja. So, if you want to give up, do it now. Ibiki continued to apply psychological pressure. I do what I say, and I never go back on my words. That's my ninja way, Naruto said with a firm expression, trying his best to forget the words and embering images Hana had just whispered. However, the image of himself being hugged and kissed by the beautiful Hana-ni-chan was still hard to erase from his mind, making his cheeks feel even hotter. What an interesting kid. He managed to calm the unease of those around him in an instant. There are still 79 people left. Although there are still many people left, it seems pointless to keep pressing like this, Ibiki thought to himself. He then gave a faint nod to the present proctors. All of you, you've shown extraordinary determination, Ibiki said, his tone slightly softening. In that case, whoever is still here, you all pee the first exam. Ibiki announced the test results with a faint smile. Instantly, everyone in the room was in an uproar. What happened? Why did we all suddenly pee? Then what was the question for the 10th problem? Sakura exclaimed, still in disbelief. Ha ha ha, from the beginning, there was no such thing as a 10th question like that. Ibiki laughed heartily, his laughter echoing. If I may say so, the choice you faced just now was the real 10th question. So the first 9 questions meant nothing at all. Someone protested, unconvinced. Of course, they meant something. Ibiki snapped, his face serious again. The purpose of those first 9 questions was to test each of your intelligence gathering abilities. You had to complete those 9 comprehensive questions by any means necessary. Ibiki explained. In other words, this exam was essentially based on cheating. So, as targets for your cheating, I selected 2 chunin who knew the correct answers to infiltrate and sit among you. Those who cheated in foolish and easily detectable ways were, of course, immediately eliminated. As for the reason, Ibiki slowly removed his headband, revealing a horrifying array of burned scars and gashes on his head. Information, in missions and on the battlefield, is sometimes more valuable than life itself. Information is something you risk your life to obtain. And information obtained from a third party is not necessarily correct information. Remember this well. Holding wrong information in your hands, and simply believing it, will bring a devastating blow to your teammates and even your village. But we still can't accept that last question. Some people still insisted on protesting about the life and death choice. The 10th question, or rather the 10th choice, was the ultimate goal of this first exam. Ibiki explained patiently. When you become a chunin, you will lead a team. Do you think you can always avoid dangerous missions? The answer is, of course, impossible. There will be times when you get missions that cannot be refused, no matter how dangerous they are. Being able to show courage to your teammates in critical moments, and having the ability to break through difficulties together, those are the qualifications a chunin must possess as a unit captain. Ibiki smiled faintly, his gaze no longer intimidating, but full of appreciation. If you are an individual who doesn't even dare to risk your own life for a possibility, and only pins hope on an uncertain future without trying, a coward with a wavering heart and weak will, I don't think such a person is qualified to be a chunin. All of you here, Ibiki continued, have successfully faced the difficulties you might encounter in the future. You have successfully ped this entrance exam. With this, the first exam is declared over. I wish you all the best in the next exam. Yosha. Naruto leapt for joy, pumping his fist in the air. We did it. Datbeo. Hey, it's still too early to celebrate now. Suddenly a black cloth ball burst in through a broken window, startling everyone. Ibiki deftly dodged. The cloth ball unfurled on the wall, revealing a banner. It read, "The proctor for the second exam, Mitarashi Anko, is here. I'm the second exam proctor, Mitarashi Anko." A female ninja in tight brown fishnet attire and an athletic, curvaceous body appeared in a flamboyant style in front of the banner. Her aura felt wild and unpredictable. All right, kids, no time to relax. Let's go straight to the second exam location. Everyone, follow me. Anko exclaimed with great enthusiasm, as if eager to start the party immediately. Take a look at the atmosphere first, Anko, Ibiki reminded expressionlessly from behind the announcement board still stuck to the wall, mocking Anko's overly enthusiastic behavior. Anko looked at Ibiki slightly embered, then cleared her throat. Ahem. 79 people, Ibiki, a lot of teams ped. You were too lenient on the first exam this year, Anko said, dissatisfied, as she observed the remaining genin. There are many great ninjas this year, Anko, Ibiki replied briefly. HMPH. In that case, for the second exam, I'll make sure the participants are reduced to less than half. Enko became enthusiastic again, a wide grin etched on her face. Quote, we'll discuss the exam details tomorrow. After that, we'll move to the actual exam site. You can ask your respective Jonin sensei about the meeting place and time for tomorrow. Now, dismiss. The next day, the morning sun had just shown its rays when Team 7 arrived at the location of the second exam, a vast area surrounded by a high fence with one large gate inscribed, Training Area 44, or more notoriously known as the Forest of Death. The air around it felt heavy and full of anticipation. The genin who ped the first exam had gathered, their faces showing various expressions. Mitarashi Anko stood in front of the gate, her wide smile looking a bit insane. Alright, brats, listen up, Anko shouted in a loud voice that broke the silence. She explained the rules of the second exam. Each team would be given one scroll, either a heaven scroll or an earth scroll. They had to obtain the matching scroll from another team, by any means necessary, and bring both scrolls to the central tower in the middle of the forest within a 5-day time limit. Fighting was allowed, and the risks, well, this was the Forest of Death. Remember, Anko continued after explaining various gruesome details about the forest, in there, you are prey and predator. Survival is key. Don't anyone die foolishly before reaching the tower. She grinned. Alright, I've said everything I need to say. Lastly, I hope everyone can complete this assessment safely. Don't let your lives be lost. Good luck to everyone. The genins' reactions varied. Some looked even more excited and eager to prove themselves, like some teams from other villages who looked thirsty for a fight. Others had pale faces, imagining the horrors awaiting them in the forest. However, having reached this point, after ping the pressure-filled first exam, not a single ninja chose to give up just like that. Team 7 stepped up to the registration table, signing consent forms which essentially stated that they were fully responsible for their own fate within the forest. They then received an earth scroll. After that, they walked towards one of the many gates that would open simultaneously, ready to enter the Forest of Death. Sasuke-kun, Naruto, Sakura began with a slightly hesitant voice, holding the earth scroll they had just received. I'll give this scroll to you to keep, Sasuke-kun. Or maybe Naruto can keep it. After all, she felt her strength was the weakest among the three, and carrying such an important scroll would be too great a burden. Naruto turned, smiling knowingly. Sakura-chan, you're wrong if you think that. That's right, Naruto-kun. Explain it to her, Hana whispered supportively from within his mind. Sasuke is already well known, especially with his Uchiha name. He'll definitely be targeted by many people wanting to test their skills or just make a name for themselves, Naruto continued, repeating the analysis he had once discussed with Hana. Conversely, a girl like you might be more easily overlooked by opponents initially. They'll underestimate you, and that could be our advantage. Naruto patted his chest confidently. And don't be afraid, Sakura-chan. I'll protect you. I won't let anyone touch you, Dadbao. Naruto's right, Sasuke said curtly, and this time, for the first time in a long while, he fully agreed with Naruto's opinion without any sarcasm. He also realized the logic behind Naruto's words. Making himself a decoy while Sakura carried the scroll could be an effective strategy. Sakura was stunned for a moment hearing her two teammates' words. A warmth spread through her heart. Naruto. Sasuke-kun. Thank you. She gripped the earth scroll tighter, a new determination appearing in her eyes. After the three of them had walked for a while into the damp and dark forest, the sharp whistling sound suddenly broke the silence. Swish, swish, swish. Several kunai shot out from behind the trees. The kunai were quickly and accurately aimed at Sakura, who, based on appearance, indeed looked like the weakest member of the team. After all, she was a girl, and in the view of many traditional ninjas, often considered a weak point. However, before the kunai could reach Sakura, Naruto, with surprising speed, was already standing beside her. Clang, clang. With a single swing of his own kunai, he deflected all the flying kunai to the ground, without Sakura getting hurt in the slightest. His movements were fast and efficient, a result of his intensive physical training. Wow, your reflexes are amazing, yellow brat. But that won't be enough, a hoarse voice sounded. A ninja from a Megakure, Hidden Rain Village, appeared on a nearby tree branch, looking down on the three Konoha genin with a disdainful gaze. Three naughty brats, whoever has that scroll, hand it over nicely. Or you'll regret it, he shouted arrogantly. We'll never hand it over to you, weird uncle. Naruto shouted back, his eyes warily scanning the surroundings, looking for other possible enemies. Sakura and Sasuke also immediately took their stances. If that's the case, then I'll punish you with pain. The rain ninja leapt from the tree and pounced towards the three of them at high speed, kunai drawn. Seeing this, Sasuke immediately activated his Sharingan. I'll take this one, he exclaimed, directly confronting the rain ninja. A battle of taijutsu and shuriken throwing was inevitable. For a while, the fight between them seemed balanced, with Sasuke able to read his opponent's movements thanks to his Sharingan. However, at this moment, two other rain ninjas appeared from different directions, surrounding Naruto and Sakura. Our targets are the girl and the noisy one. One of them shouted. They quickly attacked Sakura and Naruto. Sakura-chan, fall back. Naruto ordered. Let me handle them. Naruto-kun, use Kage Bunshin and your Repusho simultaneously. Overwhelm them. Hana's instructions sounded clearly in his mind. Roger. Hana-ni-chan. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Poof, poof, poof. In an instant, dozens of Narutos appeared, surrounding the two rain ninjas. Take this. Consecutive futon. Repusho. All the Narutos shouted in unison. Dozens of strong gusts of wind shot out from various directions, mercilessly bombarding the two Megakure ninjas. Although it was only AC rank wind jutsu, when used by dozens of Narutos simultaneously with good synchronization, its power became extraordinary. Dust flew, small trees around them toppled, and the ground trembled. When the smoke and dust began to clear, the two Megakure ninjas were seen lying helplessly, covered in wounds and bruises, with some bones possibly broken. They hadn't expected the blonde brat who looked the weakest to unleash such a powerful attack. Seeing the destruction before him and the two enemies who could no longer move, the original Naruto scratched his unitchy head. He, it seems. I overdid it. A little, huh? He muttered with his trademark grin. Sasuke, who had just finished defeating his enemy, turned towards Naruto with an incredulous look. Sakura, who hadn't had a chance to do anything because Naruto had already finished off the two Megakure ninjas attacking her, could only stand silently with her mouth slightly open. No one knew what they were thinking as they witnessed Naruto's sudden demonstration of power. Next, after seeing that the Megakure ninjas had the same scroll as them, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura continued to move forward through the forest of death, now much more careful and wary in case they encountered stronger enemies. At the same time, at a guard post outside Konoha village, Enko and the other three proctors stared at three corpses lying gruesomely on the ground. Their faces were tense. Judging from the items they carried and their identification documents, they are Kusugakure ninjas who officially registered for the Chunin exams, an examiner beside Enko explained, his tone serious. Enko herself stared at the three corpses with a deep frown. Faceless, as if melted by something corrosive. Their entire facial surfaces are flat and horrifying. There's no doubt that this jutsu, this is Orochimaru's signature. Enko thought, a bad premonition creeping over her. But why would that person come to this exam? What is his objective? Enko thought quickly, then turned to the three examiners beside her. She said to them with an urgent tone, something very dangerous has happened. The faces of these three Kusugakure genin were stolen, and it's highly likely the culprit has infiltrated the Chunin exams disguised as them. You must immediately inform Hokage-sama and request at least 2 Anbu squads to be on standby and sweep the forest of death. I will go in first to investigate the situation and find the intruder. All right, carry it out immediately. After saying that, several people began to act quickly according to Anko's orders. On the other side of the Forest of Death, Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke were resting for a moment under a large tree. Suddenly, Naruto stopped chewing his rations and Sasuke also immediately took a wary stance at the same time. Both sensed a strange and threatening presence. Do you feel it too, Naruto? Sasuke asked softly. His eyes narrowed, his Sharingan not yet active but his alertness heightened. Ah, it seems he has ill intentions towards us, Naruto replied in a low voice, his hand already ready to draw a kunai. Hana-ni-chan, this aura is very unpleasant, Naruto whispered inwardly. That's right, Naruto-kun. This aura is filled with something very evil. Be careful. This person is very dangerous, Hana replied, her tone sounding more serious than usual. You guys are really amazing, huh? You got that scroll very quickly, it seems, but unfortunately, their scroll is the same as yours. A female ninja wearing a Kusagaker forehead protector slowly emerged from behind the shadows of the trees. Her way of walking was strange, like a snake. She stared at Sasuke's boyish face with an intense gaze full of love. No, it was more like a horrifying obsession. She licked her lips with her tongue that was almost half a meter long, making Naruto, Sakura, and even Sasuke shiver in horror. Of course, the disguised Orochimaru also realized that in their last battle with the Omegaker ninja, these three Konoha genin showed great potential, especially Naruto who used Kage Bunshin and his wind jutsu Mivli. Unfortunately, his only primary target at the moment was Sasuke Uchiha. Orochimaru couldn't wait to leave his mark on Sasuke. At this moment, Orochimaru calmly took out a heaven scroll from under his clothes and showed it to the three of them. You're looking for this, right? However, something shocking and disgusting happened next. He actually opened his mouth wide and swallowed the entire heaven scroll in one gulp without hesitation. Then, Orochimaru uttered a few words in a hoarse and cold voice that made their hair stand on end. Let's begin this battle of life and death. Before he finished speaking, a horrifying and tangible killing intent, like a solid substance, suddenly erupted from his body, sweeping around like a raging storm wave, making Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke find it difficult to breathe. The thick and real killing intent from Orochimaru instantly paralyzed Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. Their legs felt rooted to the ground, breath caught in their throats, and their minds were filled with horrifying images of death. Sasuke and Sakura even began to show signs of hallucination due to the immense mental pressure. Naruto-kun, wake up. Hana's voice suddenly sounded loudly in Naruto's mind, like an awakening bell. Simultaneously, a warm and strong flow of chakra from Hana spread throughout Naruto's body. Instantly, the cold and gripping sensation that paralyzed him drastically reduced. The influence of Orochimaru's thick killing intent was successfully broken through. Ha! Ha! Naruto panted, cold sweat drenching his temples. His vision refocused. He saw Sasuke and Sakura still frozen, their faces pale, their eyes showing terror. Without wasting time, Naruto immediately formed hand seals. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Poof. Poof. Two Naruto clones appeared and immediately tapped Sasuke and Sakura's shoulders quite hard. Sasuke. Sakura-chan. Wake up. The physical touch and shout from the clones, coupled with a little chakra Naruto channeled through them, successfully pulled Sasuke and Sakura from Orochimaru's genjutsu and mental pressure. Both of them jolted in shock, their breath ragged. What happened? Sakura asked, still trembling. That monster. His aura. Sasuke clenched his fists, looking at Orochimaru with a mixture of fear and anger. No time to explain. We have to fight him together. The original Naruto exclaimed. Sasuke, let's go. Sasuke nodded. Both of them immediately dashed to attack Orochimaru, who was still standing with a cold smile, as if enjoying their fear. Orochimaru moved with incredible agility, his body slithering and dodging every attack from Naruto and Sasuke like a slippery snake. Damn it, he's so agile. Naruto grumbled while continuing to throw punches. Let's try that combination jutsu, Naruto. Sasuke suggested, his already active Sharingan eyes continuously watching Orochimaru's every move. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. Sasuke took a deep breath and spewed a giant fireball towards Orochimaru. Futon. Repusho. Naruto, who was ready, immediately followed up with a strong gust of wind from his hand, directing and enlarging Sasuke's flames. The combination attack of wind and fire created a miv and hot vortex of fire, shooting towards Orochimaru at high speed. This was a deadly attack for most ninjas. However, Orochimaru just smiled faintly. He formed hand seals quickly. Futon. Daidappa. A gust of wind far more powerful than Naruto's emerged from Orochimaru's mouth, easily splitting and extinguishing Naruto and Sasuke's combined fire and wind attack, even throwing both of them several meters back. Damn, so strong. Sasuke hissed, trying to get up. Naruto also felt the vast difference in power. Hana Nichan. This person, he's no match for us. Fufufu, of course not, Naruto-kun, Hana replied with a strangely mischievous tone in the midst of this critical situation. He's one of the legendary three Sannin, Orochimaru. You genin are clearly no match for him. But don't worry, Oni-chan has a plan. What plan? Naruto asked hopefully. It's simple, Hana said lightly. Make 1,000, no, make as many Kage Bunshin as you can. Spread them throughout this forest of death. Tell them to shout for help to anyone they meet, proctors, Anbu Pingbai, or if you're lucky, the third Hokage himself. Tell them there's an incredibly strong and dangerous enemy here, this is no longer an ordinary exam. That many. Naruto was shocked. With additional chakra from me, you can definitely do it, Naruto-kun. Create white smoke that billows as high as the sky. Let everyone know there's a big problem here. Naruto didn't hesitate anymore. He focused his chakra, feeling the warm flow of chakra from Hana giving him extra strength. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Poof. In an instant, thick white smoke billowed out tremendously, covering an area hundreds of meters around them to a height of tens of meters, momentarily obscuring Orochimaru, Sasuke, and Sakura's vision. When the smoke began to clear a little, the sight was truly extraordinary. Thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, of Naruto figures in their signature orange jackets now filled the forest. They all shouted in unison. Help! There's a strong enemy in this sector. Everyone WHO hears, come immediately. It's Orochimaru. Orochimaru. The thousands of Naruto Kage Bunshin immediately scattered in all directions like a tidal wave, running through trees and bushes. A small fraction of them, hundreds, stayed behind, trying to buy time against Orochimaru with sporadic attacks. Orochimaru, initially a little surprised by such a number of clones, now began to look annoyed. Kyuubi brat, so troublesome. He stuck out his tongue, then formed seals. Kuchio's no Jutsu. A giant snake emerged from the ground, destroying several trees. Simultaneously, thousands of small snakes also crawled out from Orochimaru's sleeves, attacking the crowd of Narutos trying to approach. However, many of Naruto's clones managed to escape the snakes' ambush, scattering who knows where. And what was more annoying for Orochimaru, every time some of those clones had a chance, they would simultaneously unleash the same wind jutsu, futon, repusho, creating small windstorms that, while not seriously injuring him, greatly disturbed his concentration. Thousands of blonde-haired teenagers in orange jackets were now truly spreading throughout the forest of death. Some of them had even managed to reach the outskirts of the forest and accidentally encountered some Chunin and Jonin who were patrolling or just ping by. One of Naruto's clones, running the fastest thanks to a little extra push from Hana, managed to meet Anko, who was moving quickly towards the location after examining the three Kusagakure genin corpses. Miss Proctor. That Naruto clone shouted. There's great danger in the forest. There's a man, or maybe a woman, who's very strong. He claims to be Orochimaru. Of course, Orochimaru hadn't officially introduced himself, but Naruto was just repeating what Hana instructed him to say. Anko was stunned. Orochimaru, are you sure, brat? Meanwhile, at the initial battle site, Orochimaru was really starting to get annoyed with this swarm of Narutos. They were endless. Every time he destroyed hundreds of clones with his snakes or jutsus, thousands more seemed to reappear instantly from behind puffs of smoke or trees. He had even lost track of the real Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura amidst this chaos. His target, Sasuke, was now hiding somewhere. Tens of minutes had passed, and Orochimaru was still busy, cleaning up Naruto's endless clones, like a swarm of buzzing, annoying mosquitoes. Suddenly, his sharp instincts sensed several strong chakra flows rapidly approaching his location. His eyebrows raised slightly when he recognized one of those chakras. Anko, my troublesome student, Orochimaru muttered with a thin, cold smile. She's grown quite strong, it seems. If it were just Anko and a few Anbu, Orochimaru still considered the situation under control. However, a faint frown appeared on his forehead when he sensed another, very familiar chakra presence, though still faint from a distance. A chakra that made him slightly wary. Sensei, he whispered softly, his eyes narrowing. Hiruzen is coming too. This is getting troublesome. Annoyance began to creep over Orochimaru. His plans were disrupted by this unexpected fox brat. Damn it! Smelly fox brat, he thought with suppressed anger. He didn't have much time left. With a restrained growl, Orochimaru bit his thumb and quickly formed hand seals. Kuchio's no jutsu. Thick smoke billowed, and from within emerged a giant snake with cold eyes and scales as black as night. Manda, why have you summoned me, Orochimaru? Manda hissed, its voice heavy and threatening. Don't waste my time if this isn't important. Clear these little insects for me, Manda. Orochimaru ordered, pointing towards the thousands of Naruto clones still filling the forest. Immediately, Manda snorted, but it immediately shot forward, its giant body crushing trees and wiping out hundreds of Naruto clones in an instant. With Manda's help, the remaining thousands of Naruto clones were finally cleared in a short time. It seemed that because his main body had gone quite far and possibly run out of chakra, no more additional Narutos appeared like mushrooms in the rainy season. Even so, Orochimaru knew his time was up. He could feel Hiruzen's and the ANBU's chakra getting closer. TCH, next time I'll make sure you feel it, Sasuke-kun. He hissed before disappearing into the shadows of the trees, leaving behind a trace of annoyance and a faint scent of snakes. Not long after, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, arrived at the location with several Anbu and Jonin, including a tense-looking Anko. They only found the remnants of the battle and hundreds of Naruto clones standing with varied expressions, some looking exhausted, others still energetic. Grandpa Hokage, you're finally here, one of the Naruto clones exclaimed, his face, similar to the real Naruto's, looking relieved. What happened here, Naruto? Hiruzen asked seriously, his eyes scanning the damage around them. We sensed a very evil aura and a major battle. It was Orochimaru, Grandpa Hokage. Another Naruto clone replied, pointing in the direction Orochimaru had disappeared. He was a man, or maybe a woman. His appearance was so weird. Another Naruto clone chimed in, that's right. He claimed to be Orochimaru and arrogantly told us all his plans, Dadbao. Anko, hearing Orochimaru's name, immediately tensed. Orochimaru, what did he tell you, brats? He said. One Naruto clone began to explain, trying to remember Hana's instructions precisely. He plans to take the last Sharingan, which belongs to Sasuke. And he also said he wants to destroy Konoha and kill Grandpa Hokage. Of course, once again, this was an added spice from Hana. The real Orochimaru wouldn't be foolish enough to detail his plans to Genin, but who would know the truth now? The Jonin and Anbu who heard this looked at each other anxiously. Even Hiruzen looked surprised, though he tried to hide his astonishment behind his calm face. Did he really say all that? One of the Jonin asked, slightly doubtful. A legendary Sannin leaking his plans to Genin. Perhaps he was too arrogant, seeing his opponents were only Genin, another Anbu chimed in. Or maybe he deliberately wanted to spread panic. The Naruto clones nodded in unison. Yes, he was very arrogant. He thought we were weak, so he underestimated us and told us everything. Hiruzen let out a long sigh. Whatever the reason, this information was invaluable. He looked at the Naruto clones with a gaze full of appreciation. Naruto, he said with a proud tone, you have performed an extraordinary act. You have provided very important information for the village. Your courage to face such a strong opponent and the way you spread the information are truly commendable. He smiled warmly. As Hokage, I promise you. As long as you successfully reach the third round of this Chunin exam, I will immediately grant you Chunin status as a reward for your service today. The eyes of the hundreds of Naruto clones immediately sparkled brightly. Really? Grandpa Hokage? They exclaimed in unison, their voices echoing through the forest. Without waiting for a further answer, the hundreds of clones immediately turned towards the Jonin, Chunin, and Anbu standing behind Hiruzen. Did you hear that? Did you all hear what Grandpa Hokage said, right? He promised to make me a Chunin if I reach the third round. You're all witnesses, okay? Don't let Grandpa Hokage forget, Datbeo. They shouted, as if campaigning. The adult ninjas present, though initially a little surprised by Naruto's enthusiasm and outspoken behavior, could only chuckle in amusement. Ha ha ha, yes, Naruto, we all heard it clearly, one of the Jonin said with a smile. Don't worry, we'll remind Hokage-sama if he forgets, Anko chimed in with a grin, feeling a little amused amidst the tense situation. We'll all testify for you, Naruto. Another one added. Feeling satisfied with the guarantee from the witnesses, the hundreds of Naruto clones smiled broadly. Yosh. Thanks, everyone. Then, with an unseen command, the hundreds of Naruto clones simultaneously dispelled their Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Poof, poof, poof. Thick white smoke billowed high into the sky, enveloping the area and making several people cough due to the dense concentration of smoke. Meanwhile, in the distance, the real Naruto, who had been hiding safely inside a large tree hollow with Sasuke and Sakura, suddenly shed his head. Ah! He groaned softly, his eyes closed in pain. Sakura, sitting beside him, immediately turned anxiously. Naruto, what's wrong with you? The information and exhaustion from the thousands, even hundreds of thousands of clones that had just disappeared, now flooded Naruto's mind at once. The sensation was too much for his young brain to handle. My head hurts so much. Naruto muttered before his eyes rolled upwards and his body went limp. He fainted. Naruto. Sakura shrieked in panic. She immediately moved closer and checked Naruto's condition. He was still breathing, his pulse was also normal. After a brief check, Sakura sighed in relief. Thank goodness. He just fainted from exhaustion. Sasuke, who had been observing silently, glanced at the unconscious Naruto, then at the darkening sky. It's getting dark, he said flatly. I'll go hunt some game for our dinner. You two stay here and guard the scroll. Sakura nodded, her attention returning to Naruto, ensuring her teammate rested comfortably. The fight earlier had truly drained their energy and mental fortitude. And this exam, it seemed, had only just begun. Reactions of other teams. Before Hiruzen arrived, the orange wave spread with astonishing speed. Thousands of teenagers in striking orange jackets with blonde hair were now truly flooding every corner of the forest of death. Cries of, "Help! It's Orochimaru!" echoed, creating panic and confusion among the other Chunin exam participants. Team 10, Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, Konoha. Shikamaru Nara, who was lazily lying on a tree branch strategizing, was suddenly awakened by the approaching uproar. What in the world is that? Choji Akamichi muttered, stopping his munching on potato chips. Ino Yamanaka, who was fixing her bangs, looked up. Don't tell me it's Naruto's doing again. So troublesome. Before Shikamaru could answer, dozens of Narutos rushed past them. Some even nearly collided with a surprised Choji. Oi, watch out, Dadbao. One of the Naruto clones shouted without looking back, continuing to run. Help, Orochimaru. Shikamaru frowned. This was definitely not part of the exam he had anticipated. Troublesome. But this looks serious. He looked at Ino and Choji. We need to be more vigilant. If there really is a legendary Sannin in this forest, we need to avoid trouble. Ino shivered. Choji swallowed. I'm not hungry anymore. Team 8 Kiba, Hinata, Shino, Konoha. Kiba, Inuzuka and Akamaru were sniffing out another team's trail when Akamaru suddenly barked frantically, pointing in one direction. What is it, Akamaru? Did you smell something strong? Kiba asked. Before Shino Aburame could analyze with his insects, the first wave of Naruto's hit. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. There's great danger. Several Naruto clones shouted while running at full speed. Hinata Hyuga, who was still a little worried about the real Naruto's condition, was surprised to see so many Naruto-kuns. Naruto-kun. This many. This is Kage Bunshin no Jutsu on a MIV scale, Shino muttered, his dark glees shifting slightly. The amount of chakra required for this is extraordinary. And the message they carry. Orochimaru. Kiba grinned. Ha, that idiot must be causing chaos again. This is a chance to show off. However, seeing the Naruto clones completely ignoring them and just focusing on running while shouting, Kiba's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. Hey, where are you going? Fight me first. He shouted, but not a single Naruto clone stopped. Team Guy, Neji, Lee, Tenten, Konoha. Rock Lee was doing one-handed push-ups, while Neji Hyuga observed the surroundings with his Byakugan, and Tenten checked her weapon supply. The spirit of youth must keep burning. Lee exclaimed. Suddenly, Neji stood upright. There's a very large and irregular chakra movement. The number? Hundreds. No. Thousands. Tenten was shocked. Thousands. Is it an attack? Before they could prepare, Naruto clones were already seen running among the trees. Help. There's a strong enemy. Orochimaru is in this forest. Rock Lee immediately got excited. Enemy. This is an opportunity to prove that hard work serps talent. Tenten held Lee back. Wait a minute, Lee. Look at them. They're not attacking us. They're asking for help. Neji observed carefully. This is Uzumaki Naruto's shadow clone technique. He's spreading himself to seek help. Very inefficient, but effective for spreading a message quickly. He noticed the clones just ran past them, ignoring his team's presence. Team Suna, Gaara, Kankuro, Tamari. Gaara of the sand stood silently, his sand swirling slowly around his gourd. Kankuro was inspecting his Karasu puppet, while Tamari fanned herself with her large iron fan. So noisy, Tamari commented, hearing faint shouts from a distance. Kankuro looked up. What's that? The voice of that blonde Konoha brat. Suddenly, dozens of Naruto clones ped not far from them, some even crashing into the bushes near Kankuro. Look out. Get out of the way, Dadbao. There's a crazy person named Orochimaru about to rampage. One of the clones shouted. Kankuro jumped in surprise and reflexively took a defensive stance with Karasu. What the hell is this? An attack? Tamari also readied herself with her fan. There are so many of them. Is Konoha trying to trap us? However, the Naruto clones paid them no mind at all. They just ran straight, some turning in other directions, continuously shouting about Orochimaru and asking for help, ping Team Suna as if they were just part of the forest scenery. Gaara merely stared coldly at the orange wave. His dark ringed eyes narrowed. Uzumaki Naruto, and Orochimaru. A faint, terrifying smile almost formed on his lips. Interesting. Team Oto Dosu, Zaku, Kin. The team from Otogakure, who were actually Orochimaru's subordinates, were hiding, awaiting orders. What's that sound? Kin Suchi asked, her sharp ears catching the shouts. Zaku Abumi snorted. Sounds like the Konoha brat were targeting. But why so many? Dosu Kinyuta, their leader, felt the vibrations in the ground from the footsteps of hundreds of clones. This is Kage Bunshin, and they're mentioning Orochimaru-sama's name. He smiled sinisterly behind his bandages. It seems Orochimaru-sama is having fun. We don't need to interfere unless ordered. He signaled his team to remain hidden, observing from a distance the panicking Naruto clones, completely unaware of their presence. Other AIM and Kusa teams. Several teams from smaller villages, like Imegakure or Kusagakure, the real ones, not the disguised Orochimaru, became very wary. An attack. This must be an attack from Konoha. A genin from Imegakure shouted, seeing dozens of Narutos running towards them. His team immediately took a defensive formation, ready to launch jutsu. However, to their surprise, Naruto's army just sped by, some even accidentally bumping into their team members. Sorry. Out of the way. It's an emergency. It's Orochimaru, shouted the clone who bumped into them, then immediately got up and ran again, ignoring the confused and angry stares from the Imegakure genin. What? What just happened? His teammate asked, equally confused. They slowly lowered their weapons. They didn't attack. Similar situations occurred at several other points in the forest. Genin from other villages, who initially thought this was a planned attack or a trap by Konoha, became confused and hesitant when the hundreds of Naruto clones just focused on running and shouting for help, completely ignoring the presence of other teams as if they were insignificant. The Forest of Death, which was supposed to be an arena for battles between genin, had now turned into a stage of chaos due to the actions of one person, or rather, thousands of clones of one person. And the message they carried, the name, Orochimaru, began to spread like a plague, sending a chill down the spine of every ninja who heard it. The Miv chakra usage to create hundreds of thousands Kage Bunshin earlier seemed to have an unexpected side effect on the Kyuubi's seal within Naruto. Somehow, the seal felt slightly weakened, or perhaps more accurately, Hana's consciousness within it gained a little more room to move. Currently, in Naruto's dim subconscious, Hana realized something extraordinary. Her hands, which had previously only been able to move within the limited area of the giant iron bars, could now extend slightly beyond them. Not much, but enough. Her blazing red eyes sparkled. She wouldn't waste this opportunity. Carefully, as if afraid this moment was just an illusion, Hana extended her now slender human form hand through the gap in the bars. And finally she could touch her prince directly. Naruto was still lying unconscious in the thin pool of water in front of the seal, his face peaceful though slightly pale. Naruto-kun, my prince. Hana's voice trembled with emotion as her slender fingertips felt the softness of Naruto's cheek. This sensation, so real. So different from just looking at him from behind bars. A smile full of happiness etched itself on Hana's beautiful face. She began to gently caress Naruto's cheek, then with a bit of playful affection, gently pinched his nose, and then her fingers began to trace the contours of her heart's hero's face. His eyebrows, his blonde eyelashes, his slightly parted lips. Unconsciously, Hana was already completely hooked. Her facial expression turned into a mixture of tenderness, admiration, and a bit of an acute fangirl's obsession. Slowly, Naruto began to regain consciousness. His eyelids twitched before finally opening. His still blurry vision gradually focused, and the first thing he saw was Hana Nichan's face very close, touching his face with an expression that was hard to define. There was a strange glint in her eyes, and Naruto could swear he saw a tiny droplet of saliva almost trickling from the corner of Hana's slightly smiling lips. Hana, Nichan, Naruto mumbled, his voice hoarse. Then, Naruto's gaze unconsciously drifted down a bit. Because of Hana's bent position as she tried hard to extend her hand as far as possible, the light blue kimono she wore had become even looser at the shoulders and chest. A certain area that should have been covered was now almost visible, revealing more of her smooth white skin than usual. Instantly, Naruto's face turned beet red. His eyes widened. Wah wah wah. With a quick reflex, Naruto immediately backed away several steps, moving his face out of Hana's reach. He stammered, unable to speak, and hurriedly bowed deeply, hiding his hot face and ensuring his, Naruto Jr., which had impolitely woken up, too, wasn't visible to Hana Nichan. Embering. Ah! Hana jolted in surprise, as if just awakened from a beautiful dream. She saw Naruto suddenly move away and bow in panic. Instantly, Hana's own face turned red as she realized what she had just done and how she currently looked. Quickly, she pulled her hand back and tidied her messy kimono a bit, trying to regain some of her dignity. The atmosphere in the subconscious suddenly became very awkward. Only the faint sound of dripping water could be heard. Hana cleared her throat softly, trying to break the silence and get Naruto's attention, who was still faithfully turned away from her. Ahem. Naruto-kun, are you alright? She asked, her voice trembling slightly from emberment. Naruto, after ensuring his little brother was safely asleep again, slowly straightened up, though his face still felt hot. He turned to face Hana, trying to look normal. Why yes, Hana Nichan. I'm fine. Just a little startled. Thank goodness for that, Hana replied, slightly relieved. You were unconscious for quite a while. Naruto frowned, trying to remember. Unconscious? Oh, right, Orochimaru. Did we manage to escape him? Where are Sasuke and Sakura-chan? Hana smiled gently. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. When you exerted all your chakra to create those thousands of Kage Bunshin, you managed to create a huge chaos and attract a lot of attention. Orochimaru seems to have left before reinforcements arrived. The three of you are in a safe place now, well hidden. I can sense your team is near your real body. She looked at Naruto proudly. You tried very hard, Naruto-kun. I'm really proud of you. You saved your team and possibly prevented a worse plan. Hana's sincere praise warmed Naruto's heart, making him forget his earlier emberment a little. Hee, that's thanks to your help too, Hana Nichan. By the way, Hana continued, changing the subject, it should be morning in the outside world now. You've slept for quite a while here. She then seemed to remember something, her eyes sparkling knowingly. Naruto-kun, do you want to meet your distant relative? Naruto blinked in confusion. Distant relative? I have relatives. He had always felt alone. Hana nodded enthusiastically. I'm not 100% sure, but when you spread your Kage Bunshin earlier, I sensed a chakra flow very similar to yours, the distinct chakra of the Uzumaki clan, somewhere around this forest of death. Not very strong, but clear enough. Maybe one of the exam participants too. Naruto's eyes immediately widened. Uzumaki. Really? Hana Nichan. There's another Uzumaki besides me. Enthusiasm immediately welled up in his chest. The desire to meet someone who might share his bloodline was immense. I want to meet them, Dadbao. Hana smiled at Naruto's enthusiasm. Of course. But there's a condition. She gestured with her chin. You have to come closer to these bars again. I need a little contact to help you sense the direction of that chakra better when you wake up later. Hesitantly, Naruto swallowed. The image of the embering incident earlier flashed again. But the desire to meet a fellow Uzumaki was too strong. With slow and careful steps, he approached the iron bars again. All right, Hana Nichan. But, don't do anything weird again, okay? He asked softly. Fu, of course, my prince, Hana replied with a sweet smile that somehow felt a little dangerous. As soon as Naruto was within reach, both of Hana's hands shot out from between the bars, not to help sense chakra, but to attack Naruto's face again with the enthusiastic groping of a fangirl. Kya, Naruto-kun's cheeks are so squishy. Hana shrieked internally, her face flushing happily. Wah, Hana Nichan, you said you'd help with the Uzumaki chakra. Naruto protested, trying to dodge, but Hana's hands seemed to have a mind of their own, continuously groping his cheeks, nose, lips, and chin. Naruto tried hard to look away, trying to look at the dark ceiling of his subconscious, or at the pool of water at his feet, anything as long as he didn't see Hana Nichan, who was appreciating his face. But his efforts were in vain. Hana's fragrant scent, a mixture of cherry blossoms and something sweet and calming, unceremoniously invaded his senses, making his head a little dizzy and his focus waver. And when his gaze unintentionally returned to Hana, the sight he saw made him swallow hard. Due to Hana's enthusiastic movements, her blue kimono had slipped even further, revealing her smooth white skin from her shoulders, upper arms, down to a part of her clean armpit. Naruto's pubescent brain seemed to short-circuit. That image was too stimulating. Thump. They both froze stiffly when they realized something that shouldn't have happened again. Naruto Jr. had once again shown its existence with valor. The silence was instant, but it felt very, very long for both of them. Naruto's face was as red as a boiled crab, while Hana also froze, her hands still on Naruto's cheeks, her eyes wide with shock as she realized the situation. I have to go, Naruto exclaimed in panic. Without waiting for Hana's reply, he immediately broke the connection and exited his subconscious. He was too embered to face Hana Nichan any longer in this condition. Inside the seal, Hana could only squat, hiding her crimson face between her knees. Ooh, how sinful lucky I am, but, she muttered softly, a strange mixture of emberment and happiness churning within her. My prince has grown up. When Naruto opened his eyes in the real world, he still felt his heart pounding and his face hot. He blinked several times, trying to adjust to the morning light filtering through the leaves of the tree where they were hiding. The first thing he realized was that he was alone. Neither Sasuke nor Sakura was around. Thank goodness, Naruto thought with immense relief. His social life as a teenager would truly be over if Sasuke, or worse, Sakura, had seen his little brother wake up before he did. That would be lifelong teasing material. After making sure nothing was wrong with him, especially his lower body, and his heart had returned to a normal beat, Naruto slowly crawled out of the narrow tree hollow, looking for his two teammates. The faint smell of cooking wafted through the air, making him realize he was also very hungry. The faint but enticing aroma of grilled fish finally led Naruto to a small open area near a river. There, he found Sakura diligently tending a small campfire to keep it lit, while Sasuke had just returned from the river, carrying several rather large fish he had caught. Naruto, you're awake, Sakura exclaimed, her face immediately brightening when she saw Naruto approaching. She quickly stood up and went to him. How are you? You made us so worried earlier, suddenly fainting like that. Naruto smiled a little awkwardly, scratching the back of his unitchy head. The shadow of the incident in his subconscious with Hana Nichan still haunted him a bit. Ah, hee, sorry for making you worry, Sakura-chan, Sasuke. I'm fine now, just a little tired, I guess. Thanks for looking after me. Sakura smiled gently. Of course, we looked after you, Naruto. We're a team, it's only natural to look after each other. Sasuke, who was cleaning fish by the riverbank, just snorted softly. Don't be a bother again, Dobi. Though his words were curt as usual, there was a slight hint of relief, or maybe it was just Naruto's imagination. Both he and Sakura were too used to Sasuke's Tsunere attitude to think too much about it. The grilled fish will be ready soon, Sakura said cheerfully, trying to lighten the mood. Sasuke-kun is amazing for catching such big fish. They then enjoyed their slightly late breakfast peacefully. Naruto briefly recounted, and omitted the most embering parts, how he had managed to create chaos to drive Orochimaru away, of course, with the guidance of someone he kept secret. Just as they finished eating and began to pack up the remaining supplies, the atmosphere around them suddenly changed. Three figures emerged from behind the trees, walking with an unfriendly aura. They were Dosu Kinuta, Zaku Abumi, and Kin Suchi from Otogakure. Yo, Dosu greeted with a sinister smile on his partially bandaged face, his large metal arm looking threatening. Looks like we met at the right time. Uchiha Sasuke, we've come for you. Zaku grinned broadly, the holes in his palms looking ready to shoot something. We've been watching you from the start. It's time to prove who's stronger. Kin just chuckled softly, Senbon already tucked between her fingers. Your Earth Scroll, we'll take it. Sasuke immediately stood up, his eyes narrowed, his Sharingan not yet active but his alertness at its highest level. Sakura also took a defensive stance beside Naruto. Naruto-kun, be careful, Hana's voice suddenly sounded in Naruto's mind, her tone serious. The one with the bandaged face, Dosu, he uses sound-based attacks through the device on his arm, very dangerous if hit directly. The other one, Zaku, can shoot air and sound waves from his palms. As for the girl, Kin, she's an expert in using Senbon that might be coated with poison and sound-based genjutsu using bells. Naruto nodded faintly, absorbing the information from Hana. He quickly whispered to Sasuke and Sakura, Sasuke, Sakura-chan, listen. That scary-faced guy, his attacks use sound from his arm, don't get hit. The other one can shoot wind from his palms, and the girl uses poisoned needles and might be able to daze us with bells. I have a plan. Sasuke and Sakura looked at Naruto with slight surprise. Since when could this dobe analyze an opponent's abilities in such detail? And even have a plan? What plan, Naruto? Sakura asked, a little hesitant but also curious. I'll distract them with Kage Bunshin, Naruto whispered. Sakura-chan, you focus on dodging the sound attacks and needles, look for an opening to attack the girl from a distance with kunai or traps. Sasuke, you face the strongest one, the bandaged face guy. But be careful with his sound attacks, try to disable that arm of his. Although still confused about how Naruto could suddenly become smart and strategic, his analysis sounded plausible. Sasuke just snorted but didn't argue. Sakura nodded in agreement. Alright, let's try it. Hey, whispering and planning something, huh? Zaku sneered. It won't do you any good. He immediately dashed forward. The battle begins. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruto exclaimed. 5 Naruto clones appeared and immediately attacked Zaku and Kin, creating a diversion. Zaku laughed. Is this all? Zenkaha. He swung his hand, sharp airwaves shot out, easily destroying several Naruto clones. Kin nimbly dodged another Naruto clone's attack, Senbon flying from her hand. Too slow. The bells on her Senbon jingled, creating a subtle sound wave trying to disrupt the original Naruto's and Sakura's concentration. Sakura, remembering Naruto's warning, quickly covered her ears for a moment and leapt back, throwing several kunai with explosive tags towards Kin. Not so easy. Meanwhile, Sasuke directly confronted Dosu. Sharingan. Sasuke's eyes turned red with two tomo. Dosu grinned. Beautiful eyes. Too bad they'll be ruined soon. He aimed his large arm at Sasuke. Kayome-sen. A high-pressure sound wave shot towards Sasuke. Sasuke, thanks to his Sharingan, managed to read the attack's direction and dodged nimbly. He tried to get closer, aiming for Dosu's arm. Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu. Several small fireballs shot out, forcing Dosu to keep his distance. The original Naruto, seeing Sakura struggling a bit against the agile Kin and Zaku who kept shooting airwaves, decided to help. Hana-ni-chan, I need an idea to disable them quickly. Use futon. Repusho to disrupt their balance, then attack the weak points I've observed. Zaku is too focused on attacking forward, his sides are open. Kin relies heavily on her agility, make the area around her difficult to move in. Alright, Naruto and his remaining clones attacked again. The original Naruto focused on Zaku. He dashed to the side, avoiding a Zenkaha, then slammed his palm. Futon. Repusho. A gust of wind hit Zaku's side, making him stagger slightly. Naruto didn't waste the opportunity. A hard punch landed on Zaku's ribs, making him cough and retreat a few steps. On the other side, Sakura managed to trap Kin. Several nylon threads she had previously set up managed to trip Kin. Before Kin could react, Sakura had already delivered a powerful punch. Seeing his two comrades starting to be pushed back, Dosu became more aggressive. However, Sasuke with his Sharingan continued to read his every move. Their fight was fierce, the sound of Dosu's sound attacks and small explosions from Sasuke's fire jutsus echoed in the forest. Sasuke managed to hit Dosu several times with taijutsu, but Dosu's iron arm was really troublesome and his attacks were hard to completely avoid. Several times Sasuke felt the sound vibrations travel through his body, making him slightly nauseous and dizzy. Enough playing around, Sasuke shouted. He saw an opening when Dosu had just launched his sound attack and there was a brief pause before he could attack again. With trained speed, Sasuke leapt back to create distance, his hands quickly forming seals. Kaden. Ruka no Jutsu. Fire style. Dragon Flame Jutsu. A more focused and elongated stream of fire, resembling a dragon's head, shot from Sasuke's mouth. Unlike Gokakyu which spread out, Ruka no Jutsu was more concentrated and directed. Sasuke deliberately aimed the attack not directly at Dosu's body, but at one of the visible cables or mechanisms on the sound device on Dosu's arm, a part he had noticed with his Sharingan seemed vulnerable. Dosu was surprised by Sasuke's change in tactics. He tried to pull his arm away, but the speed of the dragon flame, coupled with Sasuke's accurate prediction thanks to his Sharingan, made him a little too late. The fire licked and burned part of his large iron arm, right where Sasuke had aimed. Beast. SSSSHHH. A sparking and hissing sound came from the device on Dosu's arm. Thin black smoke billowed from it. The arm wasn't completely destroyed, but it was clearly damaged. Arg. Damn you, Uchiha. Dosu groaned in pain and annoyance. His arm could still move, but he felt his next sound attack wouldn't be as strong as before, or might not even function at all. The heat from the fire was also still spreading through his arm. Seeing their leader injured and his two comrades, Zaku and Kin, already lying helpless, Zaku unconscious from Naruto's attack, Kin also unconscious from Sakura's punch, Dosu realized they had lost. He raised his uninjured hand. Enough. We surrender. With difficulty, he took out a scroll from his pouch. This is a heaven scroll. Take it. He then walked over to Zaku and Kin, carrying them both. Indeed worthy of being called Uchiha Sasuke's team, Dosu muttered bitterly before finally leaping away, disappearing among the trees. Naruto snorted in annoyance. TCH. It's always Sasuke who gets noticed. Even though Sakura-chan and I fought hard too, Dadbao. Fufufu. Don't pout like that, my prince, Hana's voice giggled amusedly in his mind. You were amazing just now. Your analysis was spot on, your attacks were also very effective. Without your direction, that fight might have been much harder. Sasuke is strong, but you were the brains and spirit of this team today. I'm so proud of you, Naruto-kun. Hana's sincere praise and coddling tone instantly made Naruto's annoyance vanish. His face flushed slightly. Well, at least he still had Hana Nichan who genuinely loved and admired him. And for now, that was more than enough for Naruto. Oh right, Naruto-kun, Hana continued after a brief pause, her voice now more serious. I've managed to confirm the location of the Uzumaki chakra I sensed yesterday. She's not too far from here. It seems he's also in trouble. Naruto's eyes immediately lit up. Really? Hana Nichan, where is she? Hana gave a rough description of his location in Naruto's mind. To avoid arousing Sasuke and Sakura's suspicion, Naruto decided not to tell them about his Uzumaki relative or Hana's help. After the three of them rested for a moment and made sure there were no other enemies around, Naruto stood up. Yosh, guys, he exclaimed with feigned enthusiasm. When I fainted, I seemed to remember something from my cage bunshin that spread out. It looks like one of them found a route to the central tower that's quite safe and not too far from here. How about we follow that route? Sasuke looked at Naruto suspiciously. Are you sure your memory is correct, Dobi? Don't let us get lost. Sakura looked more enthusiastic. A safe route. That's great, Naruto. Let's try it. Of course, I'm sure, Tem. Naruto replied, trying to sound convincing. Anyway, just trust me, Dadbao. After tidying up for a bit and ensuring the heaven scroll they obtained was safe, the three of them immediately hurried to follow the route suggested by Naruto, pushing through the dense forest of death towards an unknown destiny. Team 7's journey along the safe route, shown by Naruto, or more accurately, directed by Hana, felt a bit calmer compared to the forest area they had ped through before. The trees here seemed sparser, and sunlight penetrated the canopy more easily, creating a less oppressive atmosphere. Are you sure this is the right way, Naruto? Sasuke asked after walking for a while, his eyes still warily scanning the surroundings. It feels too easy. Of course. My Kage Bunshin's memory can't be wrong, Dadbao. Naruto replied with feigned confidence. Hana-ni-chan, are we close? He whispered inwardly. Soon, Naruto-kun. I can feel his chakra getting clearer. Get ready, it seems he really is in trouble, Hana replied with a slightly worried tone. Just as Hana finished speaking, a rough rustling of bushes was suddenly heard, followed by a low, heavy growl from ahead. A few moments later, a girl's terrified scream followed. Help! Anyone, please help me! Without much talk, Naruto and Sasuke immediately dashed towards the source of the sound. Sakura, slightly surprised, quickly followed behind them. The sight they witnessed was quite shocking. A girl with fiery red hair was frantically fumbling on the ground, as if searching for something. In front of her, a giant forest bear, much larger than an ordinary bear, stood on its hind legs, growling angrily with saliva dripping from its muzzle full of sharp teeth. Its long claws looked ready to pounce. Oh no, she's not wearing her glees. Sakura exclaimed, realizing why the girl seemed so confused and couldn't see the threatening danger. Before the bear could pounce, Naruto had already dashed forward. Hey, ugly bear, your opponent is me, he shouted, throwing several kunai to distract the beast. Sasuke, with calmer but no less swift movements, was already on the other side of the bear. Don't get in the way, Dobi. He leapt onto a nearby tree branch, seeking a more advantageous position. The fight didn't last long. Naruto, with his agility and a few Kage Bunshin he created in an instant, managed to confuse the bear. Meanwhile, Sasuke, from above, launched precise shuriken attacks at vital points that weren't lethal but enough to temporarily disable it, like its leg joints. Finally, with a strong kick from the real Naruto aimed at its head, the giant bear collapsed with a loud thud, unconscious. While the two boys played with the bear, Sakura quickly approached the red-haired girl. Are you okay? She asked gently, helping the girl up. Did your glees fall? The girl was still trembling with fear. Why yes. I can't see anything without them. That thing. That bear. Calm down, it's safe now, Sakura said soothingly, while helping the girl find her glees, which had apparently been thrown not far from there. Here they are. Sakura handed over the thick-rimmed glees. With trembling hands, the girl put her glees back on. Her previously blurry vision now became clear. The first thing she saw was the silhouette of a black-haired teenage boy standing arrogantly on the body of the large unconscious bear, as if he had just conquered a monster. Then, her gaze shifted to another spiky blonde-haired teenage boy who was smiling kindly at her, a smile that felt so sincere and warm like the morning sun. Beside him stood the pink-haired girl who had helped her, looking at her with concern. Thank you so much for helping me, the red-haired girl said softly, her face slightly flushed, whether from fear or something else. Naruto approached with a wide smile. No problem. Helping people in trouble is my duty as a future Hokage, Dadbao. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. What's your name? The girl was slightly surprised to hear the surname Naruto mentioned, but she remembered her mother's message to avoid mentioning the Uzumaki name as much as possible if not absolutely necessary, for her own safety. My name is Karen, she replied briefly, not mentioning her clan name. Naruto, who had been told by Hana about Karen's condition and the possibility of her hiding her Uzumaki identity, just nodded in understanding. Nice to meet you, Karen. This is Sakura-chan, he pointed to Sakura who smiled, and the cool-looking guy on the bear is Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke just snorted from atop the bear, not coming down. And like I said, I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the greatest future Hokage of all time. Naruto continued proudly, clenching his fist in the air. Karen looked at Naruto with a slightly furrowed brow. Uzumaki. But, your hair isn't red? She asked, confused. As far as she knew, the main characteristic of the Uzumaki clan was fiery red hair like hers. Naruto was also confused. Do Uzumakis have to have red hair? I didn't know, Naruto thought. He glanced at Karen's red hair, then at his own blonde hair. Fufufu, maybe it's a mix from your father's genetics. Hana whispered amusedly. Oh, maybe you mean like this. Suddenly Naruto had an idea. He formed a hand seal. Henge no jutsu. Thin smoke billowed, and when it cleared, Naruto's spiky blonde hair had turned fiery red, similar to Karen's hair color, though the style remained Naruto's signature spiky look. How's that? Cool, right, Dadbao? Karen and Sakura couldn't help but laugh at Naruto's new appearance. Even Sasuke, still perched on the bear, unconsciously raised the corners of his lips slightly, forming a very thin and faint smile, almost invisible. After their laughter subsided, Sakura asked Karen in a more serious tone, Karen, where are your teammates? Why are you alone in such a dangerous place? Karen's face immediately turned grim. I don't know. We got separated yesterday when another team attacked us. I tried to find them, but I got lost and lost my way. Her voice sounded sad and desperate. Naruto felt sorry for her. Hana-ni-chan, we have to help her, he whispered inwardly. Of course, Naruto-kun. This is a good opportunity. Besides, she's also an Uzumaki. We should help each other, Hana replied. Suggest escorting her to the tower. There she can report and ask the Hokage for help in finding her team. Don't worry, Karen, Naruto exclaimed with a roaring smile. We'll escort you to the central tower. There you can report and ask Grandpa Hokage for help in finding your friends. Karen looked at Naruto, then at Sakura and Sasuke. She seemed hesitant. But, won't I be a bother to you? You're also taking the exam, right? No problem, Sakura replied quickly with a smile. Besides, we're heading in the same direction. Sasuke just shrugged. Whatever. As long as you don't slow us down. Although still a little hesitant, Karen didn't sense any malice or ill intent from Naruto and his two friends. Especially from Naruto, she felt an aura that was strangely familiar and calming. All right then. Thank you very much. Yosh. It's decided. Naruto exclaimed. Let's go. The central tower awaits. The three of them, now four, quickly resumed their journey towards the central tower, following the route suggested by Naruto. Their journey of four towards the central tower turned out to be smoother than expected. Naruto, with his super instinct, which was actually Hana's precise whispers in his mind, successfully guided his team through relatively quiet and safe paths. Naruto-kun, turn left at that big tree intersection. There's a chakra trail of another team that just ped to the right, let's avoid them, Hana whispered. She deliberately chose a route that steered clear of some strange and suspicious chakra flows, especially one chakra that felt slippery and calculating, which Hana suspected belonged to Kabuto Yakushi. Hana wasn't sure what that important pawn of Orochimaru would do, who in the future would become one of the major masterminds of the Fourth Great Shinobi War. She didn't want to take any risks with her prince's safety. Better safe than sorry. After walking with several short breaks, they finally arrived at their destination. A towering stone tower building was now visible before them, surrounded by a high fence. This was the central tower of the Forest of Death. They had managed to arrive on the third day of the exam, still within the specified time limit. Finally, we made it. Naruto exclaimed in relief, wiping sweat from his forehead. Sakura also sighed in relief. Thank goodness we made it. And thank you, Karen, for coming with us. Karen smiled faintly. I should be the one thanking you. Without you, I don't know what would have happened. Sasuke remained silent, but his eyes carefully observed the tower entrance. The four of them entered the first room inside the tower. The room was quite spacious but seemed empty, except for a large inscription carved on the wall in front of them. Sakura approached and read the inscription carefully. If the quality of heaven is not in you, seek it and prepare. If the quality of earth is not in you, run and obtain it. When heaven and earth open together, the closed path will become true. This is the secret of man. Guide and you shall understand. Quote. She frowned, thinking, heaven and earth, heaven scroll and earth scroll. Could it mean we have to open both scrolls simultaneously? Sakura hypothesized. Open the scrolls. Naruto scratched his head. How do we do that? Is it okay to just open them like that? Maybe we should place them there. Karen suggested. Without waiting any longer, Naruto, who was already impatient, immediately took out the earth scroll he was carrying, which Sakura had previously kept, while Sasuke took out the heaven scroll they had obtained from Team Oto. Alright, let's try it. Naruto said. The two of them looked at each other, then together threw both scrolls onto the floor. Poof! Thick smoke billowed, filling part of the room. When the smoke began to clear, a man they knew very well now stood before them with a warm smile. Iruka-sensei. Naruto and Sakura shrieked almost simultaneously, their faces showing surprise and joy. Iruka Yumino smiled broadly. Yo, Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke. Congratulations on reaching this tower. Sensei. Why are you here? Sakura asked curiously, still a little in disbelief. Is this part of the exam too? Hearing Sakura's question, Iruka explained patiently, actually, at the end of this second exam, the rules require us, the Chunin proctors, to come and greet the candidates who have successfully ped. And it's truly a delightful coincidence that this time, I was chosen as the bearer of very important news for you. At this point, the smile on his face became brighter and more meaningful. Only then did Iruka notice there was a fourth person among them, a red-haired girl with glees who looked a little shy. Oh, I'm sorry, it seems there's an additional member in your team. He asked politely, looking at Karen. Ah, this is Karen, sensei. Naruto quickly explained. We accidentally met her in the forest. She lost her glees and was almost attacked by a big bear. Her team also got separated somewhere. Naruto recounted the version of events known to Sasuke and Sakura, of course, without mentioning Hana's role or the fact that the meeting was arranged. Karen looked down shyly as she became the center of attention. After hearing Naruto's explanation, and how Team 7 planned to escort Karen to the third Hokage to ask for help, Iruka nodded in understanding. I see. You did the right thing by helping her, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura. That shows the true spirit of Konoha. He then smiled at Karen. Don't worry, young lady. After this, I'll escort you to report to Hokage-sama. You three, Iruka turned back to Team 7, must rest. You've worked hard. There will be a preliminary round before the third exam begins. Preliminary round. Sakura, who was always diligent in asking questions and curious, was immediately intrigued. What kind of round is that, Iruka-sensei? Isn't the third exam directly after this? Iruka chuckled softly. Because the number of teams that pee this second exam is usually still quite large, a preliminary round is needed to further filter the participants who will advance to the final round or the third exam. This preliminary round usually consists of one-on-one battles between the successful candidates. The details will be announced later. Iruka's explanation made Team 7 a little tense but also excited. One-on-one battles. Alright then, Iruka said, patting Naruto's shoulder. Rest well in the provided rooms. There will be further announcements tomorrow. Karen, come with me. Karen nodded. Once again, thank you very much, Naruto, Sakura-san, Sasuke-san, she said sincerely to Team 7 before following Iruka out of the room. After Iruka and Karen left, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura looked at each other. Immense relief was visible on their faces. They had successfully passed this brutal second exam. Ha, finally, we can rest, Naruto said, stretching his body. Sakura nodded in agreement. I really need a bath and sleep. Sasuke, though not saying much, also looked slightly more relaxed. They could finally rest peacefully, recovering their energy and mental strength to face whatever would come in the next round. The competition arena inside the tower was now filled with tense yet anticipatory faces. The genin candidates who had successfully survived the harshness of the forest of death, whether with great difficulty or relatively easily, were now gathered, awaiting their next fate. On the upper balcony, the Jonin instructors observed from a distance. Hehe, you have all shown remarkable abilities. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, stood in the middle of the arena, his favorite pipe tucked between his fingers. His wise eyes looked at the remaining genin. Only a few had managed to pee, and the fact that Konoha contributed more than half of them made him, as Hokage, feel very proud. Shortly, we will begin the preliminary rounds for the third exam, the third Hokage's voice echoed. Only those who successfully pee these preliminary rounds and then win the final battles will be eligible to participate in the true third stage of the Chunin exams, which will be held 1 month from now. However, before that, allow me to say a few words first. The smile on the Sandame's lips widened. His mood was very good today, so he felt the need to give some additional advice to these young successors of the village. Naruto, standing among the crowd of other genin, felt his lips twitch restlessly for no apparent reason. He started to get a bad feeling. A few words, he thought. Don't tell me this is going to be a very, very long speech. Hana-ni-chan, Naruto whispered in his mind, his eyes starting to feel heavy as the third Hokage began his speech. Hana chuckled softly within the seal. Fu, it seems so, Naruto-kun. Old people do tend to enjoy reminiscing and giving lots of advice. Just consider it patience training for you. In the arena, the third Hokage's old voice resonated, like a monotonous lullaby for some of the genin. The true purpose of what is called the Chunin exams, Hiruzen began, is to demonstrate the strength and stability of our village to the daimyo and clients from various countries. Naruto tried hard to look attentive, but his mind had already begun to wander. Patience training, huh, but this is so boring, Dadbeo. Naruto complained. Look at that Gaara, his face looks like it's about to explode. He glanced at the red-haired Suna genin, who stood stiffly with an increasingly dense cold aura. He does look impatient, Hana commented. The chakra within him also feels unstable. Among the 5 great ninja villages, our Konoha is the most prominent in terms of military and economic strength, the third Hokage continued, starting to delve into the history of the village's founding. Our first Hokage of Konoha, Hashirama Senju, went to great lengths to pacify the difficult times of inter-clan warfare. Oh, now we're onto history lessons, Naruto said, his eyes starting to half close. I prefer physical training to this. Come on, Naruto-kun, a little historical knowledge won't hurt, Hana teased. Maybe you can learn something about the previous Hokages. Who knows, there might be a secret jutsu you can imitate. A secret jutsu from a speech. Naruto snorted. More likely I'll fall asleep and have nightmares about being chased by history books. Hana laughed again. You're something else. Try paying attention to the others. Look at that Uchiha, he looks calm as usual. Sakura-chan is also trying hard to take notes, such a diligent girl. Naruto glanced at Sasuke who stood with folded arms, his face flat and expressionless. Then at Sakura who indeed looked serious listening, occasionally nodding. Sasuke is always like that, acting cool. Sakura-chan, she really is smart, Naruto thought. Think about the several great ninja wars we went through back then. The third Hokage now turned to the topic of war, his voice sounding heavier. The group of genin stood in the competition field, listening to the third Hokage talk about the true purpose of the Chunin exams, Konoha's status, then from the first Hokage to the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, who fell as a hero. The topic then circled back and began to reminisce about the glorious years between the first Great Ninja War and the third Great Ninja War, and listed the names of heroes and great ninjas who became famous in the ninja world after Konoha's founding. Half an hour later, the third Hokage was still engrossed in reminiscing about Konoha's past glory. Hana-ni-chan, isn't this going to end? Naruto was starting to get really restless. His legs were already feeling sore. I'm hungry again. Patience, my prince, patience, Hana tried to soothe, though she herself was starting to feel a bit weary of the rambling speech. Just think of it as part of a mental test. A Hokage has to be able to stand for hours during ceremonies, right? But I'm not Hokage yet. Naruto whined. And I'm sure my speeches will be much more exciting and shorter, Dadbao. An hour later, after extensively discussing the past, the third Hokage began to look to the future with great hope. With talented young generations like you, I am confident that Konoha's future will be even brighter. Now, this part is a little interesting, Naruto muttered, slightly intrigued when the Hokage mentioned the younger generation. But it seems it will still be long, Naruto-kun, Hana interjected, sensing the direction of the Hokage's speech, which seemed like it would start a new loop. Look, he's starting to discuss the importance of teamwork again, then back to the spirit of fire. An hour and a half later, the third Hokage still showed no signs of stopping. His voice remained loud, his spirit still burning. However, the patience of the genin in the arena had reached its limit. A small commotion began to be heard. Some genin started whispering, others shifted their footing impatiently. Among them, Gaara, who indeed had the most impatient and easily angered temperament, was now truly showing his displeasure. The mouth of the sand gourd on his back began to open slowly, and clumps of fine sand started to float around him, emitting a faint killing aura. His face looked very grim, and his eyes stared sharply at the third Hokage. Naruto, who from the moment the third Hokage opened his mouth after the first few minutes of trying to pay attention, was now completely engrossed in conversation with Hana in his mind, trying various ways to ignore the Grandpa Hokage's seemingly endless voice. They had even discussed what would be a delicious dinner menu if Naruto managed to become a Chunin. Apparently, it wasn't just the genin who were starting to lose patience. Someone from among the crowd of adults, the Jonin and Chunin proctors, standing around the competition venue, finally mustered the courage. Lord Sandaime, cough, cough, cough. A pale-faced man with dark circles under his eyes, Gecko Hayate, leapt out from the crowd. He took a few steps forward, covering his mouth, interrupting the Sandaime's speech with a series of severe-sounding coughs. Oh, Hayate, what's wrong with you? Are you sick? The third Hokage asked, pausing his speech for a moment, looking at Hayate with slight dissatisfaction in his eyes. This boy, truly unwise. Can't he see I'm enthusiastically delivering an important message? The Sandaime thought to himself. So disruptive. Coughing like that, why not just be quiet and rest? Khu. Lord Sandaime, Hayate bowed respectfully, though his face grew paler. As the proctor appointed to lead the preliminary round of this third stage of the Chunin exams, please allow me to handle the subsequent work. He said in a voice that was somewhat hoarse but firm. Hayate looked at the Sandaime very seriously, even a little pleadingly. He really couldn't bear to listen to the Sandaime's lecture any longer. It had been almost 2 hours. If allowed to continue, he worried his lungs would completely give out. The Sandaime frowned. Very well, Hayate. But your health doesn't look good. You should rest first before working. I also still have some important things I want to convey to them. The third Hokage urged, still reluctant to end his speech, which he considered very inspiring. This boy really can't read the situation. I'm in high spirits. Hee hee. Cough, cough, Lord Sandame, you don't need to worry about me, Hayate replied, trying to smile though it was difficult. I'm still young, my body can still endure. It is you who works day and night tirelessly for Konoha, you need rest more than I do. Hayate faced the Sandame's unfriendly gaze, took a deep breath, then said, clenching his teeth slightly, as if gathering all his courage, don't worry, Lord Sandame, I will ensure this task proceeds perfectly and according to your expectations. Quote. The Sandame looked at Hayate calmly for a few seconds, the aura around him feeling slightly oppressive. The Jonin in the stands held their breath. Finally, after a silence that felt suffocating, the third Hokage sighed softly and uttered the word, all right, from between his teeth, his tone clearly still a little annoyed. As the third Hokage turned and walked with slightly forceful steps towards the exclusive Hokage seat in the stands, Kakashi, Asuma, Kurenai, and several other Jonin who knew Gekko Hayate better, secretly gave him a thumbs up from a distance. That's a true warrior. Daring to interrupt the big boss's speech when he's fired up. They thought with admiration and a bit of amusement. The Sandame walked towards his seat with displeasure, secretly starting to think of ways to teach Hayate a lesson later. If I remember correctly, this poor boy seems to have a lover, right? And if I'm not mistaken, his lover is an Anbu member. Alright, it's happily decided. I'll send his lover on a very long business trip mission later, so he won't have time for romance and disturbing important people's concentration anymore. The Sandame thought with a hidden, cunning smile. Ku. Hayate turned, now directly facing the group of genin before him. A heart-wrenching cough once again sounded from his dry throat. Hello. Cough, everyone. I am Gekko Hayate. I will be, cough, the host for the preliminary round of the third exam which will begin shortly. Let's, cough, discuss participant statistics first. If any candidate feels, cough, not in good physical or mental condition, they may choose to, cough, withdraw now. Quote. The group of genin candidates stared at Hayate's pale skin, his gaunt face, and the dark circles under his eyes that made him look like he had just pulled an all-nighter for a week or perhaps suffered from chronic kidney deficiency. They all simultaneously thought, the one in the worst condition isn't you, Mr. Proctor. Especially his incessant coughing, it made everyone wonder inwardly whether the proctor named Hayate would cough up blood or suddenly faint in the next second. Seeing Gekko Hayate, who had bravely saved them all from the third Hokage's long scolding, like a savior god descending from heaven, Naruto and Hana in his mind couldn't help but give him a thumbs up in their imagination. He's a true warrior, Hana-ni-chan. Naruto whispered full of admiration. Not only did he dare to interrupt Grandpa Hokage's speech, but he did it so persistently. Fu, that's right, Naruto-kun. We must learn from his spirit, Hana replied, also impressed by Hayate's courage. The preliminary round of the Chunin exams had officially begun. One by one, the names of the genin who had successfully ped the harshness of the Forest of Death were called to fight one-on-one in the middle of the spacious arena. Naruto sat on the spectator balcony with Sakura, occasionally glancing at Sasuke who had just finished his match with a victory that was, as usual, quick and efficient. Sasuke had now rejoined them, leaning calmly against the wall, though his breathing sounded slightly heavier than usual, indicating the fight had taken a considerable toll on his energy. The atmosphere around them was quite tense, filled with cheers and comments from other spectators. However, within Naruto's mind, a completely different conversation was taking place. While half-heartedly watching Shikamaru's fight, which seemed so lazy, yet full of calculation against one of the Otogakur genin, Naruto finally mustered the courage to voice a question that had been bothering him for quite some time. Anyo, Hana-ni-chan, Naruto whispered inwardly, his voice hesitant and slightly curious. He glanced towards the arena, then refocused on his thoughts. I've been wanting to ask for a long time, why do you always call me, Prince? I'm, well, You know, I'm Naruto, not a prince from any kingdom, Dadbao. In her dim seal, Hana, who was relaxing while elegantly smoking her long pipe, was slightly surprised to hear Naruto's sudden question. An amused smile she couldn't suppress immediately graced her beautiful lips. It seemed her acute fangirl mode, which she had been trying to control all this time, had finally gotten the green light to explode freely. Era, my prince finally asks. Hannah's voice sounded so sweet and gentle, yet there was an undeniable tremor of enthusiasm behind it. She put down her pipe for a moment. Why do I call you prince, you ask? Fufufu, that's a very good question, Naruto-kun. Hana cleared her throat softly, as if preparing a well-rehearsed honorary speech in her heart. It's because, to me, you truly are a real prince, Naruto-kun. The prince of my heart. How could I not admire that burning spirit of yours? Your unyielding spirit that can inspire anyone who sees it. Even when the whole world seemed to look down on you and shun you, you never once gave up on your noble dream. Naruto started to feel a bit strange, a ticklish sensation creeping up the back of his neck. My spirit. Is my spirit really that great? Of course, it's that great, even more so. Hana exclaimed with a tone full of conviction. And that smile of yours, Naruto-kun. Oh, your smile. Your smile that's as warm and bright as the morning sun, possessing the power to melt even the coldest and hardest of hearts. Every time I see your sincere smile, it feels like all the troubles and sadness in this world just vanish, replaced by warmth and hope. Hana continued, her voice growing more enthusiastic, her eyes in the subconscious seeming to sparkle with a shower of glittering stars. My smile too. Naruto's face unconsciously began to feel warm. He had never heard anyone praise his smile like that. And your presence, Naruto-kun. Your presence is a gift. Hana continued, her tone now slightly softer but full of emotion. You know, a long time ago, there were times when I felt very tired, very bored, and so stressed with various demands and disappointments. Hana was, of course, referring to her stressful life as an office worker in her previous world, but she carefully chose her words so Naruto wouldn't suspect. And in those darkest moments, just remembering your existence, remembering your unyielding spirit, that was more than enough to be my greatest encouragement. You are my beacon of light in the storm of darkness, Naruto-kun. My inexhaustible source of strength. Light. Source of strength. Naruto was starting to get really flustered. He never expected Hana Nichan to give such a dramatic and sweet answer. The barrage of compliments made him confused, a little moved, and also, well, there was a strange and pleasant ticklish feeling in his stomach. And that's not all, Hana exclaimed again, as if just warming up. Your limitless courage, your heart that is so sincere, forgiving, and full of affection. The way you treat your friends so loyally. The way you always stand strong in the face of every difficulty and obstacle. Everything about you is so incredibly admirable. So perfect in my eyes. You are the true definition of a real hero. So, tell me, how could I not call you Prince? My son Prince. My Prince of Hope. The Prince Savior of my soul. Prince. That's enough, Hana Nichan. Naruto suddenly shouted in a high-pitched voice, making Sakura and Sasuke, who were sitting nearby, jump in surprise and turn towards him with astonishment. I understand. I understand what you mean very well. Please stop now. This is really embering, Dadbao. Naruto continued in a panicked voice that only he could hear in his mind, his face now as red as a ripe apple. He hurriedly covered his entire face with both hands, trying hard to hide the blush he was sure had spread to the tips of his ears and neck. His heart was pounding very fast. Sakura looked at Naruto with a deeply furrowed brow of confusion. Naruto, why are you suddenly shouting like that? And why are you covering your face? Is something wrong? Sasuke, who had just finished catching his breath after his fierce fight earlier, also turned towards Naruto with a raised eyebrow, his gaze scrutinizing. What's wrong with you, Dobi? Did you just see a ghost in broad daylight? Naruto, still with his face tightly covered by his hands, shook his head vigorously. Nothing's wrong. Really. I just suddenly remembered a very embering moment from when I was still in the academy. Yes, that's it. Nothing to worry about, he answered, his voice muffled and slightly stuttering from extreme emberment. Sakura and Sasuke glanced at each other for a moment, their expressions hard to read. Ah, so Naruto can feel embered too, huh? Sakura thought to herself, a slight amusement arising. Usually, he's so nonchalant and doesn't care about things like that. Is he starting to mature? Sasuke just snorted softly, turning his face back to the arena. This kid, he really has grown up a bit, it seems. Or maybe he's just acting weirder. The atmosphere fell silent again for a moment among the three of them, only the sound of cheers and the thuds of battle from the arena filling the air. Naruto was still trying hard to calm his heart, which felt like it was about to jump out of his chest, and the heat on his face that wouldn't subside due to Hana Nichan's unexpected storm of praise. Match after match continued in the arena. Finally, it was Sakura's turn, her name called to face Ino Yamanaka. The battle between the two best friends and eternal rivals was quite fierce and emotionally charged. Unfortunately, however, Naruto still couldn't fully focus. His mind was still somewhat distracted by the intense conversation with Hana earlier, and the lingering emberment made it difficult for him to concentrate fully on the fierce battle unfolding before him. He only vaguely heard Sakura and Ino launching attacks at each other with various jutsu and taijutsu, interspersed with their typical competitive shouts and taunts. After Sakura and Ino's fight ended in a surprising draw, with both having to be carried out of the arena due to exhaustion, several other matches followed quickly. Until finally, a very familiar name was called. Next match. From Konohagakure, Uzumaki Naruto vs. Also from Konohagakure, Inuzuka Kiba. Gekko Hayate's distinctive voice, punctuated by his coughs, echoed throughout the arena. Naruto, who was daydreaming while trying to calm the pounding in his chest and fanning his still hot face, was slightly startled to hear his name called out loud. Only then did he seem to fully snap out of his reverie. Yosh, it's finally my turn too. He muttered to himself, trying hard to gather his focus and fighting spirit that had been scattered. As he stood up and walked towards the stairs to descend to the arena, Kiba, who was also walking from the opposite direction with Akamaru faithfully perched on his head, grinned broadly at him. Hey, Naruto, ready to taste defeat, huh? Akamaru and I will make you regret daring to face me in this exam. Kiba taunted arrogantly. Akamaru, sitting cutely on Kiba's head, barked a few times as if agreeing with his master's words. Naruto merely glanced briefly at Kiba, choosing to ignore the provocation he deemed unimportant. His mind was now fully focused on the fight he was about to face. He descended the stairs with steady steps, trying to calm himself and recall all the possible fighting strategies he could use, as well as all the advice and guidance Hana Nichan had ever given him. When both contestants stood facing each other in the middle of the vast arena, Hayate, after coughing several times to the concern of some spectators, finally raised his hand high. The match between Uzumaki Naruto and Inuzuka Kiba, hereby, begins. Naruto took a deep breath, his blue eyes now staring sharply and with full concentration at Kiba and Akamaru. The emberment and palpitations from Hana's earlier praise slowly gave way to adrenaline and fighting spirit. It was time to show the results of his hard training. The battle between Uzumaki Naruto and Inuzuka Kiba began with high intensity. Kiba, with Akamaru already transformed into a replica of himself through Jujin Bunshin, immediately launched the Inuzuka clan's signature fast and brutal taijutsu attacks. The arena was filled with two Kiba figures moving wildly, charging through the waves of Naruto's cage Bunshin that kept appearing. Occasionally, some of Naruto's clones would release a small futon repusho, a gust of wind that, although not very strong, was enough to disrupt the balance and rhythm of the Inuzuka duo's attacks. The real Naruto stood slightly behind, observing carefully, not immediately rushing in as he usually did. Remember, Naruto-kun, Hana's voice sounded in his mind moments before the match began. The Inuzuka clan's taijutsu is very fast and relies on smell and combined attacks. Don't attack them head-on and recklessly. Use your Kage Bunshin to drain their stamina and look for an opening. Naruto nodded inwardly. He remembered Hana's warning well. Usually, he would charge forward and engage in taijutsu, but this time he tried a different approach, more patient and calculated. Kakashi Hatake, standing on the balcony, just smiled faintly behind his mask. He felt a warm pride spread through his chest seeing his student's development. You've learned a lot, Naruto, he thought. After a while of exchanging blows and draining Kiba and Akamaru's stamina with waves of Kage Bunshin, Naruto saw an opening. Now, Naruto-kun, use the combination we practiced. Hana exclaimed enthusiastically. All right, take this. The real Naruto shouted. He signaled to some of his clones. One Kage Bunshin leapt forward, its hands quickly forming seals. Futon. Repusho. A concentrated ball of wind formed between its palms, spinning rapidly. Before Kiba could react, another Naruto Kage Bunshin leapt high, then with perfect timing, it planted both feet squarely on the ball of wind held by the first clone. La Aunch! Shouted the leaping clone. With a powerful thrust from the released Repusho, that Naruto clone shot forward like a human missile, its body spinning, aiming directly at one of the Kibas, who was off guard. Crack! The unexpected attack hit its target, sending Kiba, the transformed Akamaru, flying quite a distance and reverting to his dog form, looking a bit dazed. Akamaru. The real Kiba shrieked, surprised by Naruto's new tactic. He became even angrier and more frustrated. Damn you, Naruto. Don't underestimate me. Kiba, now fighting alone, became increasingly overwhelmed by Naruto's clones who kept pressing. His eyes wildly searched for the real Naruto. He saw one Naruto figure standing rather far off, looking calm and focused, as if controlling all the clones from there. There's the real body, Kiba growled. Without thinking, he focused all his chakra. Gatsuga. Kiba's body spun at high speed like a drill, shooting forward to attack the Naruto, standing still, intending to end the fight with one ultimate attack. However, as his Gatsuga hit the target, that Naruto exploded into a puff of smoke. What? Kiba's eyes widened in disbelief. That one was also a Kage Bunshin. He had been tricked. The real Naruto was actually hiding among the other clones, waiting for this opportunity. Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled even wider. That boy, he has truly grown. He's not just strong, but also clever. He looked up at the arena ceiling, as if speaking to two unseen figures. Minato. Kushina. Look at your son. He has grown into a great ninja, inheriting your unyielding spirit, Kushina, and a cunning that's beginning to be honed, perhaps a little from you, Minato. You must be proud. Kakashi felt his eyes warm slightly. He remembered the first time he met Naruto, the mischievous brat who always shouted about wanting to be acknowledged. Now, that boy had shown extraordinary development. You've surpassed my expectations, Naruto, Kakashi thought, a sincere smile etched behind his mask. On the balcony, Sasuke Uchiha, who had been leaning indifferently, now sat up a little straighter. His black eyes stared intently at Naruto in the arena. Seeing how Naruto fought more strategically and successfully deceived Kiba, a fighting spirit burned within his heart. Not bad, Dobi. You're getting interesting. I'll be waiting for you in the final round. I'll prove who's stronger between us. With Kiba confused and exhausted after his Gatsuga attack completely failed and hit a Kage Bunshin, the real Naruto saw a golden opportunity. Now it's my turn, Kiba. Naruto exclaimed, emerging from his crowd of clones. Uzumaki. Several Kage Bunshin quickly kicked Kiba into the air. Naruto Renden. Naruto Uzumaki Barrage. The real Naruto leapt high, followed by a series of hard punches and kicks from himself and his clones that rained down on Kiba's body in midair, ending with a powerful heel kick to the stomach, sending Kiba crashing hard onto the arena floor. Thud. Kiba coughed, trying to get up but his body could no longer comply. Akamaru, back to normal, howled sadly beside his master. Gecko Hayate immediately jumped into the arena, checking Kiba's condition. After a moment, he stood up and raised his hand. The winner. Cough. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto smiled broadly. With a single blink, all his cage bunshin disappeared in puffs of smoke, revealing the real Naruto standing proudly in the middle of the arena, one hand raised high. He then walked back to the spectator balcony, greeted by his teammates. Congratulations, Naruto. You were amazing just now. Sakura exclaimed sincerely, her face beaming. Sasuke merely gave a small nod, but there was a different glint in his eyes. Don't get a big head yet, Dobi. The real fight is still waiting. I'll beat you in the finals. Naruto grinned. Of course, Tem. I accept your challenge. I won't lose. Kakashi approached and gently patted the top of Naruto's head. Good job, Naruto. I'm proud to see you grow into a great ninja. You used strategy well today. Praise from Kakashi-sensei warmed Naruto's heart. Fufufu, I told you, my prince is indeed the greatest. Hana's voice sounded again in his mind, her tone full of overflowing admiration and pride. The way you tricked that puppy boy with your cage bunshin just now was truly brilliant. And that missile attack. Genius. I love you even more, Naruto-kun. Naruto's face immediately flushed slightly hearing the barrage of praise and declaration of love from Hana. He could only smile awkwardly, trying to hide his delight. Hana's attention and support had always been his greatest source of strength.